I told you guys I'd be back with some race footage, and this is the Cobb Park, Illinois State Championship. And this particular race is the Masters 35 Plus race. Now, at the beginning of this race, I kind of looked around and I knew a couple of the faces, but there were a lot of guys that I wasn't familiar with. And so, what you see me do here is just rip an attack. I guess you would call it an attack. It didn't really feel like an attack. It really just kind of felt like I was going to the front to make a really strong pull. But right about here, I look back and I'm off the front with a good chunk of seconds, maybe 5 or 6 seconds, which isn't a ton, but it's enough to see kind of what happens. And so from the first lap, I'm off the front and I'm attacking. And I figure if I can take these first couple corners at speed and come across the line and kind of see where I'm at as far as where the field is, then we'll figure out what's going to happen. This course is pretty simple. It's all left turns aside from this tiny little chicane. And the chicane you don't really have to move for. You can pretty much ride straight through it. One of the tighter corners is this one. That corner seems pretty wide, but it looks a lot tighter than it actually is as you're coming into it. So, coming across the line here to start, and I'm still off the front. And so, it's at this point that I decide, I might as well see if I can stick a breakaway from lap 1. And I just put my head down and start pedaling more. The field has not chased me at all yet. There's still pretty decent gap, right? The gap has grown the entire first lap. From what a lot of the other riders in the field said after the race is they just didn't think that I was going to stick out there. They thought that I was just going to give up and come back. And I just didn't. I just put my head down and started pedaling. And eventually, Todd from Gotham Greens bridges up. Here he is right here. And so now we've got two off the front. Two relatively strong riders. So I'm stoked about this. Like, I was really not stoked about being off the front by myself for 50 minutes. And so when Todd comes through, I sit on his wheel for a little bit and we just start rotating. We just start putting in the effort and trying to stay off the front. You can see that my power is still pretty darn high. I think the first couple minutes of this race, probably like the first 5 minutes or so, I averaged around 400, I want to say. It was a pretty hard effort overall for that first couple minutes of the race. But that's kind of what you have to do if you want to be off the front. You got to take the corners faster than everybody else, and you got to keep the speed up just a little bit faster than everybody else. Once Todd got up here, I knew that his team and my team had enough riders in the field where we could possibly make this stick. And so at this point, I'm all about trying to stay away. I want to put in the effort to try and stick this move. I much rather prefer riding in breakaways because to me, it's a whole lot easier to win amongst 3 or 4 guys or 2 guys like we have now than it is in a field sprint. It's also much less likely that you're going to get boxed in or something bad's going to happen in a sprint if you've only got a couple guys to worry about. So Todd and I have been off the front now for, I think, 2 laps together, maybe 3 laps together. And now we get a couple other guys bridging up. One of them is Todd's teammate, Tom. He's in the white helmet. And then the other rider right here is Zach. He rides for South Chicago Wheelman. Now, these guys are all putting in really good efforts. We're rotating. We're in an interesting situation here as well, something I didn't mention at the beginning of the video. You see Todd's number starts with the number 5, and that means he's in the 40-plus race. So they could combine 40 and 35. So when it was just Todd and I off the front, that means we were both going to get first. But now that Todd's teammate and Zach have joined, you can see their numbers start with a 3, and so does mine. And the 3 indicates that we are in the 35-plus field. So now I have 2 other riders to contend with. Still a podium, but 2 other guys to worry about in the break. What that means, though, is that since we all would get a podium, is we're all very motivated to keep the breakaway. You can see this other rider here in the blue. This is Mark, and he is a 40 plus rider. He didn't want to pull through right away and take his turn on the front, and so I made him bridge back up to the group and made him take a pull, because in my mind, if we have anybody who's not taking their turn in this break, it's less likely to work. So we need everybody giving it their all and putting everything they have into the breakaway in order for it to stick. If we start to play games, if we start to mess around, then things aren't going to work. You can see Zach kind of takes a little bit of an attack here. There were, like I said, a little bit of games playing, and Todd does a great job, and he closes this gap down. We eventually get back onto Zach's wheel. It was a really strong move from Zach, and you can see that we're not exactly taking it easy trying to close that gap to him. But in reality, the reason that Zach attacked is because guys weren't pulling through and we were starting to want to take breaks. And when that happens, that's when the break falls apart and that's when the group catches up. So now that we made it back to Zach, I go ahead and pull through and indicate to them that, like, look guys, I am all about this breakaway. Like, I'm in this breakaway. Let's do this. Let's put everything we have into it. There's no reason for us not to go. Like, I'm 100% in, I say here.
I'm 100% in, so 100% in. I'm 100% in, let's go.
A lot of times you don't want to show your cards to your opponents when you're racing, but if you're in this situation and it seems like everyone's not super dedicated, then it might be worth it to just tell them, like, look, I'm in on this, let's go. Here we end up dropping Mark, so it's just the four of us. So Todd, he's got first place locked up for the 40 plus. He's happy as a clam, right? Like, he can just do the work and doesn't have to worry about sprinting at the end. He gets first no matter what. The three of us, Tom on my left there, and then Zach in front of me in the yellow, we have to contest the sprint at the end. So Tom is in a nice position because he's got his teammate here, Todd, to try and do some extra games and play some sprints. And so I have to look out for Todd to make an attack and Tom to be on it, because Tom can use that as a launching board for a sprint, which is something I don't want. And you can see here, that's kind of what Todd does, right? He puts in a pretty decent dig. I'm able to just get on his wheel right away. And here we have 2 to go, so I have 0 chance of pulling through. There's no reason for me to pull through. I know that I have the other 2 guys on my wheel, one of them being Todd's teammate who is in my race. So I just basically sit up and sit on Todd's wheel. I'm not going to come through. I'm not going to make any efforts. I have seen and there have been spectators that have told us that we have enough of a gap where I don't have to worry about the field catching us anymore. And so I'm in an okay spot here. Ideally, I'd like to be behind the other 2 riders that are in my race, but right now I just have to stay on Todd and make sure that I can get across the line first. And here, Tom comes through to sit on his teammate's wheel. This is a pretty good spot because if Todd in the yellow helmet jumps to give his teammate a lead out, I can sit on his wheel. If Todd jumps to try and force us to chase, like he does right here, I don't have to do anything because he's technically not in my race. He would win the race overall, but he wouldn't win the 35 plus race. And so I'm able to just sit on his teammate Tom here and not do anything. Zach, after the race was over, said he made this attack here because he wanted to win the overall race and not just the race for the 35 plus. So here we go, last 2 corners, we're all together. You can see me looking back, the field is plenty far back, we don't have anything to worry about. And what you're going to see here is Todd's going to sit up when his teammate Tom attacks. And now this is it, right? This is the race for 35 plus. These two guys in front of me and myself are off the front. It's the podium for the 35 plus. I'm in perfect position. Honestly, this is exactly where I would want to be if I could choose my spot. And so all I have to do is not throw the race away at this point. So I'm just chilling, hanging out in the draft. You can see that we're not going very hard whatsoever. And as we come up to the last corner, we carry a slight amount of speed, but nothing too crazy. And here's where I have a couple options. I could attack from the corner and just take the inside line here and hope that it works. I could wait for the other two to go and hope that I can just stick it in the draft. Now let's take a look at what I do. The ideal line is here on the left. It cuts off the other two riders. They have to come around me in a longer route, and it gives me the shortest line to the finish line. I can carry a ton of speed through there, and they should be able to just come across the line first. Instead, what I end up doing is I go right around the other two riders, carrying an okay amount of speed. Definitely was not enough kick in the sprint, and I come past them both, but what you'll notice is Zach takes that perfect inside line I was talking about, and he opens up some bike lengths on me, and that's it. That's all she wrote. It's the end of the race. I was really kind of bummed that I threw away the opportunity at winning there after having been off the front for the entire race, but I was still pretty happy with second. This was only the second race that I did this year, and so I was happy with where my fitness was. I was happy with my abilities on the bike, and it really was a big confidence booster going into the Intelligentsia Cup, which was the next following Thursday after this race. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, and if you want to see more from me, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.